Hey, one of the most common questions we get from homeschool parents, especially as they're moving into high school, is the question about what math should my seventh grader take? Now, the people that are asking this question, they are obviously planning ahead. They're trying to transition well. They're trying to make sure that the strategy is going to work out for whatever they're trying to, whether it's college or just preparing their son or daughter for whatever is going on. And so if you're in this asking this question, we get it. We see this often. And in this question, we see also a danger. And for most of us, we went to a public or private school. Some of us may be homeschooled now, because of that's just where we are in society, that a lot of people have been homeschooled and now are homeschooling their own children. But the system that's out there of moving from high public school systems or private school systems, first to sixth grade, it's basically mathematics, right? Adding and subtracting and some basic things. And then in years and years of that, and then in seventh and eighth grade there is this kind of void that goes on, and in ninth grade we kick into college prep, if you will, or algebra type material, what we might call more abstract mathematical concepts. So what happens in the seventh and eighth grade probably maybe felt to you when you were in school, and feels to you maybe now, is that it's like this holding pattern. It's kind of weird what's going on here. And if you're not careful, your seventh and eighth graders do actually feel that themselves, and they become bored with what they're doing, and they start to, any love or enjoyment of math, they goes right downhill as they start thinking through this. And what happens there is the boredom sets in. They have a dislike for math, and then they also get to the point of thinking, well, I can't do math. I'm not interested in this stuff. So what we want to do is avoid this problem by kind of looking at this logically of what makes the most sense, because as a homeschooler you are in charge, right? You don't have to follow a system that's out there that doesn't work. And that's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing, right? Is so let's embrace that. Even in this question here, why does this matter? So all right. So why does seventh grade math matter? And again, we are transitioning between elementary math and high school subjects. It's a transition period, seventh and usually eighth grade. Many programs, what we see doing in the homeschool level too, as well as the public-private school, is they are just repeating the concepts of, and sometimes they do this under the term of pre-algebra. Sometimes they'll have other fancy names, but it's this bridge type math, and it causes boredom. And while our students feel like they don't want to be stretched, they also don't want to be bored, right? So we know everybody gets a little frustrated about learning new stuff, but actually we're excited about learning new stuff. I mean, even as adults, that's a little bit, walking into new stuff is a little bit intimidating, but it's a little bit exciting, and especially as you start to see it and get a grasp for it. So our kids are no different. They want to be excited about it. One of the most powerful tools that we kind of accidentally discovered is leaving an algebra or a geometry book on the table for them, and not asking them to pick it up, not asking them to look at it, but their curiosity will have them picking this stuff up. And you might even find your kids saying, I want to do this instead, especially if they feel like it's a little more advanced. So avoid at all costs just repeating the same thing. Because what happens is that the danger here is that many students, public, private, homeschool, doesn't matter, lose any momentum they had in learning math when they are not challenged. Now, there's a link below. We talk about why the math mistake that homeschoolers make, they give up. So, and we'll talk more in detail about that there. And so look down below and you will see that link. But here's why do school systems do this? Is somebody was asking us the other day, why would the public-private sector do this and have done it forever? Besides our reasons for having doubts about the public-private sector in general, there's a couple of core reasons why we do this little void in the middle. And a lot of people, the popular thing is hormones. This is a growing up period of time for kids, and they can't control them, and so they're kind of waiting for some of that to pass. I don't think that's true. I mean, that may be a true statement, but I don't think that's really what's going on here. What we're looking at here is systematic accountability. States, and when I say states, I do also mean private schools, want higher algebra pass rates. So they might want to delay that until it's a safer bet. So we want to be spending more time getting students ready for Algebra 1 before we throw them into it, because as you know, the students you get in public-private school, you don't have one or two to deal with. You got groups of them to deal with. And when I say systemic accountability, I mean money, right? Money flows to schools who are successful. Money tends to go away. I mean, you lose control. So your school system, your administrators want high algebra pass rates. The second thing is testing frameworks. We see at the ninth grade level, standardized tests in middle school, standardized tests in high school start kicking in for the algebra and stuff like that. But in middle school, what the standardized tests are doing is they are testing basic skills mastery. So once again, we teach to the test, right? What we do in the public school, private school systems, they're no better. Private schools will put a lot of nice labels on things, but generally they're doing the same thing the public schools are doing. They just are doing it more advanced. Those are two reasons: systemic accountability, accountability, and testing frameworks. The third thing is tracking concerns. There's kind of the schools fear rushing weaker students and causing higher dropout rates. Right, and all these things are legitimate reasons, right? Because a school system wants to be successful. How do we measure a school system on success? Is do they have high pass rates of courses? Are they doing well in these standardized tests? And are they reducing the dropout rates? All great things, but it's kind of designed by the system to do this. Well, the beauty of the homeschool is that we are not in that system. There's some elements of it that we have, but seventh grade matters more to us, for our kids and for your kids, in the sense that we want them to continue to like math. We want them to enjoy math. We want them to feel as if they are learning something new, that they're being challenged enough, and that they're moving forward and they're winning. All right. So it really does matter. A lot of people will just kind of we do exactly in the homeschool, we do in our setting, we do it because our friends and our co-ops and our homeschool cover schools just have these things. And just trust me, we follow the system. Quit following the system. Start thinking about what you're doing, which is probably why you're watching this video, right? Because you're like, there's something that doesn't fit. And you're right, it doesn't fit. So here's our experience of what we did. It is, number one, we would use things, instead of using hard curriculum for first six grades, we probably would use things like Math Mammoth and some tools, which we just kind of just went along at more of a worksheet curriculum than here's a book and we're going to go through this book this year. And that was kind of where we started. And then we would do things because of what we do, and because we would have algebra, geometry books that they would just see and laying around. And Leah would get intentional about, let's just put this book out here and let's just lay these on a coffee table or a kitchen table and say nothing about it. And the curiosity that we as humans have, and as kids are they're even more curious. They would want to pick it up. They would want to look at it. They would want to see what's going on, and then they would want to do it. They would want to understand it, and it created the desire, right? And so what we would do in that, as we started teaching this, and we got into Jacob's algebra, when we added the algebra course in here, and we started using Jacob's material, we realized that Jacob's algebra material is basically starts out in what we might call pre-algebra. But it handles it in such a way that we don't just prolong it for 2 years. We pre-algebra and this pre-algebra concept is basically repeating all the same stuff over a long period of time. Jacob's algebra and some other good selections, but they will bring in these concepts as part of the algebra conversation, because that's probably fair. That's where they should belong. So, so we would do that. So, and a matter of fact, we put a link down below on the pre-algebra concept and how we do that. Let's see what that's called. Where we're actually describing what is pre-algebra. What do we mean when we say pre-algebra, and why Jacob's is a good fit for that. We'll talk more about that in the link below. But the other thing that we would do is we would take about 2 years to complete, or at least we allowed 2 years to complete the algebra. And we've seen so many people who do something similar, or they use our program and they do this, and they just say, we're just going to move slowly through this, and we're just going to see how it goes. And we're not going to worry too much about the schedule, because we have 2 years to get through a 1-year curriculum. Some students get through it in a year, some students get through it in 2 years, and some may even take longer. You just adjust the pace, because what's key is them understanding, not just plowing through material. So even if they're heading to college, even if they're heading into something like, hey, I think they're STEM based, I think they're an engineer or a mathematician or science person, I think they're heading into something like that. It's better that they understand and they move fast, because if you try to move fast, it all falls apart. It's a house of cards. It will begin to fall apart. So just move at the speed they need to move. So, but we would oftentimes take 2 years to complete because of that. And what we would do is give them like a pre-algebra credit in the 7th grade on your homeschool cover school. And I'm just talking, probably Leah should be doing this talk because she gave the credit, but it would be something like a pre-algebra credit and then an algebra 1 credit in the 8th grade. We might actually name them a little bit better so it could be slower, like algebra 1 part 1 or something. You're really, whatever, you're meeting the needs of your cover school to say, yes, I'm covering this kind of material. But you also have to understand in your transcript, which only starts in the 9th grade, your true transcript starts in the 9th grade. Nothing else really matters except you're prepping for that. So whether I'm meaning for college, for employment transcripts, whatever reason you got a transcript, 9th grade to 12th grade. That's all we care about in society, right? So, as a matter of fact, we have a link to another video that goes through transcripts and gives you some resources about how you do a transcript, how do you use transcripts. That's also below. I'm trying to give you all the tools that you need today. But that's what we would do. We would do that so that Algebra 1 would show up on the transcript in the 9th grade. Because the colleges, if you're submitting to a college, for 99% of the cases, we don't care when it was covered. We're not concerned about, if a student took Algebra 1 in the 6th grade, and some do we care? No. We just care that the material was covered and the student understands it. And unfortunately, we are also in the system, we have this box called a transcript, and it's got to fit into there. So you kind of have to work with your cover school, whatever state requirements, and then whatever fits on the transcript. But that's basically what you're trying to do, is get Algebra 1 covered, count it for the 9th grade, and then figure out how to label it. And going slow works, because now you can call it Pre-algebra. That's probably the most common thing we see people doing is they'll call Jacob's algebra pre-algebra in the 7th grade, and they may even stay in it in the 8th grade, and then in the 9th grade they may complete it and then jump into geometry in the 9th grade. So they're ahead of the game. They've got time, they got some flexibility, they don't have to speed things up, because we all know what happens in high school for many is they get really busy on other things in life. So you leave some room there, and if they're ahead of the game, that's awesome. So all right, so but the main thing is colleges are only caring about the 9th to 12th grade. That's what shows up on the transcript. So that's what we did. We have seen that experience over and over with family members that are part of our community, with friends that are in the homeschool community. They do something similar. So, all right, let's jump down and say, now, how do you know if they're ready? That's the other question that's kind of coming here is, what do I do for 7th grade math? And if you're telling me to go buy, the Harold Jacobs algebra material and just jump into it, how do I know they're ready for that? So first of all, we have an algebra readiness test. There's a link down there to that, an algebra readiness test that helps you identify, and it's not perfect because some kids don't like taking a test, right? But it can help you as you work through that, help you identify, okay, they're pretty comfortable, they're ready, or there's some blind spots. So here's what you're looking for, is they should have mastered concepts like basic math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, including with large numbers. Now, can they do it by hand? Yes. Do they even understand how to use a calculator? That's probably handy. They're going to need that. That's not necessary yet, but for a lot of kids, they already know how to do that. Fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, they don't have to be pros about any of this. They don't have to be able to do all this in their head, but they do need to be able to understand basically what is going on, that 1/2 is equal to 0.5, or is a 50% kind of thing. And just understand the relationship of what's going on here, the basic concepts. Ratios and proportions, some basic geometry. What I mean is like the area of something, the perimeter, the volume, just some basic things. They don't have to know all the equations of what we do to calculate those, but do they generally understand what's going on here? Negative numbers. Can we do some basic negative numbers? And do we know the order of operations? It's funny because I see on social media so many people throw out math problems. What is the answer to this? And really, it's a order of operations problem, because even as adults we get that wrong. But the whole PEMDAS thing, the parentheses, etc. So understanding the order of operations, and again, we just are preparing them for some of the tools that they need. And these are what these are. These are tools like screwdrivers, like whisk, things that you might use in the kitchen. Not the two of those together, two different scenarios. But we are preparing them for, here's the tools, here's how to use them. Now, once they get that, and an algebra test, readiness test should help identify, hey, they know these things pretty well, then they're ready. Here's a caveat, though. If they're not, if you're like, wow, they seem to not be ready, they seem to be just the opposite, sometimes this is very disappointing to you and them, don't make the mistake of saying, well, you're not ready, so we're going to do another year of the same junk. Don't do that. This is where Math Mammoth came in beautifully to us, is you could say they seem to understand things, but the fractions and the decimals and the percentages don't do that. We could go over to Math Mammoth and get, just the stuff to do that. In other words, get focused on the problem. Don't just repeat everything all over again. Fix the problem. Because oftentimes as we go through this stuff, we move through it and we'll skim through some material and just not get it or have forgotten it. So it's a great method. It's motivating to the kids. They feel like, okay, I'm not doing all this over again, but I got to go back and learn this. This isn't fun. I didn't think it was fun the first time. But once they get it, they're like, there's freedom, right? They've conquered a challenge. But you don't punish them, which is what it is. You don't punish them by making them go back all year and do all the same stuff again just so they could get that one or two little things. So if they're not ready, review the weak spots. Don't stay in stall mode too long, because you want them to be challenged. And here's the thing I learned about math. I could pass a math course like algebra and geometry, but I didn't really understand. And it was at the university before I saw this, and you may have had a similar experience. I didn't really understand algebra until I got into higher level math. I mean, I could do it, I understood it, but I didn't really truly understand it. So as long as they can do it and you feel like they get the general idea of what's going on, as they grow in this, they're like, oh, this is much more clear why we were doing this in algebra now. And that happens all the way the more they learn, right? It happens as we learn pretty much everything. So you're looking for just some level of readiness. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for, okay, we feel comfortable between you and your student to dive into this book and just let's see where it goes. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's take it one lesson at a time. And when you get in there and you may find in the first couple of lessons, well, maybe it's a little rough, but it's a little slow. That's okay. Don't plow forward. Let's just kind of hang there a minute. Let's keep working some problems. Let's get it. Let's understand it, and let's move forward at a pace. And a lot of parents get freaked out about that too. They're like, well, they're moving way too slow, or they're moving too fast. But not all content is the same, right? Some things we get just very quickly. Some things we're slow, and the next thing is going to be different. So you can't judge the whole course on what happens in one lesson or one chapter. Okay. All right. So just some final thoughts here. Our Harold Jacobs. So what we do is we have a video series that covers Harold Jacobs algebra, Harold Jacobs geometry, and then of course we go into the higher level math with video. So in our course, we are assuming a lot of people have not had pre-algebra, and we just work through the book. And that's very often the case where people are. And we've had so many people succeed. We have people who have succeeded with that. They're engineers and everything out in the field now, and they've done well with that. So if you choose another video program, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to do another video program, or we're already in something, what you want to look for is, does it review elementary algebra basics quickly? Or does it stay there like forever? Does it introducing abstract concepts? When we say abstract, when we start putting the X's and the Y's that we live so much in algebra, when we start seeing that in there, when we start solving some basic equations, that's what we call abstract concepts. And also, is it going to keep them challenged? Are they going to just feel like they're repeating all the other things before? Are they going to feel like, hey, I'm actually learning something, and this is, students might not call it fun, but some of it is fun to them. Okay, so once again, down below in the links, we'll have a link to our algebra course, the whole course and the material, but also the videos on what is pre-algebra, so you can get a clear understanding of that, the mistakes that people make with the pre-algebra, and then how do you deal with this on a transcript, and some of the things that you need to know as you're getting ready for the 9th grade and on up to the 12th grade. All right, let us know if we can help. You can reach us at support@askdrcallahan.com. That's support@askdrcallahan.com. Thanks.